Coming up on this episode of the Metal Command podcast, Metal Church has a brand new single called FAFO. Megadeth has a new single called I Don't Care. DeathDealer is back with a brand new single called Blast the Highway. And I review the new Bangalore Choir album, Rapid Fire Succession. All of that coming up next here on the Metal Command podcast.
You are listening to the Metal Command podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to another edition of the Metal Command podcast. Tony here with you. Always excited to see everybody out there. And of course, if you do want to support this program, please, by all means, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content. And if you follow this show on any other form of social media or streaming service, please, by all means, give the show a like and a follow there. We have a brand new album out by Bangalore Choir. Album called Rapid Fire Succession. Of course, that features singer David Reese, who did sing with Except for one album, but who has also done a lot. He's done a lot of other great projects, and his last solo album was in, of course, the top albums of the year list for me when it came out. We have a brand new Megadeth single that came out a while ago called I Don't Care. We have a brand new single by DeathDealer. This is a DeathDealer shirt. It has a different kind of logo, but this is from the last EP, actually. But we have a brand new single by them called Blast the Highway. I'm going to talk about that as well. However, let me get into the biggest news of the weekend. Metal Church putting out a brand new single that is called FAFO, and they have a brand new lineup. They have Brian Allen on vocals, who many of you may know from Vicious Rumors, and I believe he sang on the last Trauma album as well. David Ellefson, a lot of you know him from Megadeth and a variety of other really cool projects, including a brand new project, Ellefson Soto, which will be reviewed on this show in the very near future. And then you have Ken Mary on drums. So the questions I've been receiving from people that watch this show and people that I know, I've had three things that have been pretty much the main subject of any message, any messages regarding the new Metal Church single. One, obviously people want to ask me, what do I think of the song? Two, I have people asking me, what do I think of the new lineup? And then three, of course, when you have a massive lineup change, people asking me, have I heard any rumors? Why are these, why is Mark Lopes not there anymore? What happened to the other two guys in the band? What happened to the three members that were replaced? So I'm going to talk about all of that. And just so you all know, I have no idea what happened to the previous three members who were just replaced. But I'm going to get into those kinds of questions after I talk about the song and the lineup. So as far as the song goes, first of all, I think the production is pretty good, and I think the song is really well written. One of the things that I want to point this out to everybody on the Facebook page, I had said that I like this song better than anything on Congregation of Annihilation, the last album. That is not, I want to make this very clear. That is not to say the Congregation of Annihilation is a bad record. It's not. However, one of the things that I do when I do reviews and when I listen to singles that a band is putting out, I go back and listen to the previous album or even some of the albums that came before that. Because what that does is it gives me a little bit of a perspective of how to compare, some new output from that band compared to what they've done in the past. And the Congregation of Annihilation, folks, for those of you, saying that I think the album sucks, I don't think it sucks. I went and listened to it again, and I like it, and it was on the top albums of the year list. However, when listening to that record, there is not one song on it that I like better than this brand new song that Metal Church has put out. And that's what I mean by that. I'm not saying the album was bad. Metal Church, for me, folks, by the way, I don't think I think there's maybe one album I'm not really a huge fan of, but for the most part, I've liked pretty much all of their material. I've been listening to this band, for over 30 years now. My first actual album was The Human Factor. And I ended up getting The Dark that day, later that day. I found The Human Factor at a record shop here. And it's funny, I was at a Best Buy in the early 90s, and I bought Exodus and the album Fabulous Disaster and Metal Church of the Dark on the same night. So I had The Human Factor and The Dark, and those are two of my favorite Metal Church albums. I'm a big Mike Howe guy. However, I don't think Metal Church has ever had a bad vocalist either. So as far as the song goes, I think the song is incredibly well done and well written. And I found myself listening to it over and over again because I really liked it that much. And I can't think of a song on Congregation of Annihilation that I can really say that about. Still a pretty solid album, but I love this new track a lot. I think Brian Allen really, his voice, he nails the Metal Church sound. And I think the other two guys have done a tremendous job as well. But I definitely like the sound and the production of the new song better than the sound on the last album. And keep in mind, when I'm talking about not liking it as much as the last, not liking the last album as much as this new song, that has nothing to do with the playing abilities of the previous members, or of course, the singing ability of Mark Lopes. Has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with the songwriting for me. So as far as the new lineup is concerned, so as far as singers are concerned, the singer's the biggest thing everybody's going to want to talk about, right? I mean, that's the first thing people think about. I think Brian Allen does a tremendous job, and I think he's a perfect fit for this band. I said the same thing about Mark Lopes. I did a whole entire podcast about talking about why Mark Lopes is the perfect fit for Metal Church. So as far as Brian Allen and Mark Lopes are concerned, it's kind of an, I like both of these guys as singers. I've never spoken to Brian Allen, but I have spoken to Mark Lopes. He came on my show. A really incredibly nice guy to me. It's more of an even switch for me. I really don't like one guy better than the other in this case, but I think both of them are a great fit for the band. And as far as Mark not being in the band, I'll get to that here in a minute. Let's talk about the rhythm section that is new to the band. So you obviously still have Rick Van Zandt on guitar with Kurt Vanderhoof, but we have a new rhythm section. David Ellefson. Let me get into him for a quick second. David Ellefson brings a little bit of a sense of stability. He's not a guy that just hops from band to band. He does play in a variety of projects, but he usually spends a long time being involved in those projects. And when you want a member of the band, bring a new guy into the band, you want someone with a lot of experience, especially, and even a little bit of star power, which he has a little bit of that being in Megadeth. But as far as a really reliable, very capable bass player, that's what he is. He's an outstanding player, and having a stage presence. And let's be honest, he's been in the scene over 40 years, just like Metal Church has. So he's a great fit from that perspective. And, personality-wise, I've interviewed him a few times in the past, both on a radio show and on this podcast. He's just a laid-back dude, and I think he would be a great fit for this band. And it's actually interesting to see him in this band. It really intrigues me to bring a guy like David Ellefson in here in the same manner that they had Chris Caffery playing on, one of their tours. I think it was like 10 years ago now. So I think it's really cool that Dave Ellefson is in the band. And of course, he also has already had a working relationship with the next guy I'm going to get into, Ken Mary. Now, Ken Mary, for me, is kind of the new member that I think is going to offer a lot more than people think he is going to offer. One of the things, look, I've been around the music scene a long time. I've been involved with bands. I'm a pretty good judge of character, being at 48 years old and having been around a lot of musicians over the last 27 years. I think Ken is a perfect fit for this band. And Ken is a very well-grounded, very well-centered individual as a person. You can just tell by his whole demeanor. He's also a great producer, and Ken elevates any band or project that he gets involved in. Take a look at what he did with Fifth Angel and resurrecting that band and how great those records are. Not to really say that the first two albums were bad, but the last couple Fifth Angel albums have been phenomenal. He has really elevated that band. Look at what has happened with Flotsam and Jetsam. Now, granted, I give Michael Gilbert a lot of credit for coming back, but Ken also has a lot to do with Flotsam and Jetsam putting out the best 3 albums of their career, in my opinion. I don't even think it's close. So Ken's personality, his know-how, his knowledge really will elevate a band, and I think it's going to do that with Metal Church. And you can hear that in this single. I mean, we already know he's an incredible drummer. However, what really helps a band work well, it's not just the playing. It's how somebody works with you behind the scenes. It's somebody's attitude. It's how well that person makes that band work and tick behind the scenes. And Ken is a guy that, for me, when I've ever talked to him or I've ever had any contact with him, he is literally a guy that will elevate a band. Not just behind the scenes, but even on stage. So he is the guy, in my opinion, who I think is probably, of these 3 guys, not saying anything, not diminishing their roles, but Ken's role in this band, I think the fact that he's coming in there, and, let's give Kurt Vanderhoof some credit too. This man has always surrounded himself with incredible musicians. And bringing Ken Mary in, I think, is great. And I'm sure maybe there's some history there. Ken, obviously, Fifth Angel's from Seattle. Metal Church is from that area. I'm sure there's probably some kind of history there. But the thing is, I believe wholeheartedly he's going to be a big factor in really elevating the band on this next album to a much higher level than they were at, say, on the previous record. No disrespect to the guys on that album. I just think this new lineup really I'm really excited for it. I'm more excited about Ken joining the band probably than the other guys. Like I said, I think the Brian Allen, Mark Lopes thing, as far as singing ability is concerned, it's a pretty even swap for me. David Ellefson's kind of cool to see in the band, playing bass. So it's an interesting lineup. And that gets me to the question that a lot of people have been asking me, the last question. And that is, what happened to the previous members? And folks, I'll be honest with you, I have no clue. I know as much as any of you do that they are not in the band. And the thing is, I think people dwell way too much on this kind of stuff. Because does it really matter? If they aren't in the band, they aren't in the band. And musicians leave bands or get fired from bands for a variety of reasons. It could be money. Some guys just get burnt out and don't want to do it anymore. Some guys want to do something else, musically somewhere else. And there are so many reasons people, leave bands. Some guys could have poor health. I don't know. I have no clue what happened. I will tell you this. Here's what I will say. If you look at the press release, I didn't really see press releases going out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they went out somewhere. When you don't see any kind of press release where band members, where they announce a band member and their departure, and you just see a brand new lineup and a brand new album and a brand new song out of nowhere, and these guys aren't mentioned, I am going to guess, and in 99% of these situations where you see that, there was a pretty bad falling out. And to be honest, whatever that falling out was, between guys. And again, sometimes you get personalities that are just oil and water and it doesn't work. However, whatever that falling out was, it probably wasn't great. And you probably don't want to know what happened. And I think way too many people, really harp on this stuff, like Alyssa from Arch Enemy not being in the band anymore. My timeline's been flooded with people asking why. It could be any number of reasons. I think it's just a pointless question to ask me. And to be honest, I normally don't care why somebody leaves a band. So I'm not going to sit here and start asking around, man, why is this guy not here? Why is that guy not here? I thought all three of the guys that, were replaced, I thought were good musicians. Mark Lopes, I think, is a phenomenal vocalist. However, sometimes things just don't work out. And it happens in the music business quite a bit. Especially now where so many different guys are in so many different projects, because it's very hard to make any money doing this. And most musicians, let's be honest, they're doing it for the love of it. They aren't doing it because they are going to make millions of dollars. Especially in the metal scene. So those are my thoughts. Again, I love this new Metal Church song. There really isn't a Metal Church album that I think is terrible. If I had to pick one, probably Masterpiece would be the one that I'm really not into. Other than that, they're an incredibly well-loved band by so many in the scene. It's like when a Metal Church album comes out, the excitement is always there. You always have a group of people that are just so excited for this band. And when you hear Metal Church, hey, Metal Church is putting out an album, you see mostly nothing but positive responses. So I'm excited for it. I can't wait for the next Metal Church album. I think it's going to be, my vibe is, based on who's involved, I think it's going to be great. And I really look forward to hopefully seeing this lineup in a live setting sometime soon. Now let's get into the second thing that I want to talk about. A band that I have followed since the very, very beginning, and that would be DeathDealer. Because they have a new album coming out early 2026. I believe it's January 26. It's called Reign of Steel. Brand new song called Blast the Highway, which was just released not long ago. The album cover obviously is very sick, as you see here. And I have a lot to say about this. So first of all, let's talk about the lineup. Obviously, Rasta Boss is in this band. You all know that I've worked with Stu Marshall before. He's the other guitar player in the band. You have Sean Peck. You all know that I'm friends with him. Great dude. Fellow Charger fan. Fellow Padres fan. Ryan Leaf heckler. And yeah, drummer Steve Bolognese in the band. And of course, Symphony X's own Mike LaPond, another guy that I'm really fond of. This is a great band. And they've released 3 albums and an EP. So this new album, folks, I'm just going to admit it to you right now. I've been listening to it for 3 years. I just haven't talked about it. You heard Stu refer to it in an interview on the podcast a few months back, maybe a year ago now. But I have been listening to this album because I am friends with Stu. I know him really well. I've known him for over 15 years. I have created music with him on 2 of the Empires of Eden albums. And like many musicians, he does bounce things off of me. What do you think of this? So I've been able to listen to this album, and I've been very tight-lipped about it. And I didn't want to talk about it until it came close to, okay, the album's going to come out, which it's going to come out in a couple of months. Folks, this is an incredible record. It's actually been done for around 4 years. Again, one of those casualties of COVID being delayed because of the whole COVID thing. It's finally going to come out. So for those of you that have never heard of DeathDealer, it's an incredible band. If you are somebody that likes DeathDealer, already knows who they are, and you have the previous 3 albums and the EP, let me tell you how I would rate this record. I'm not going to go in depth on it until it comes closer to release time. Let's say the entire DeathDealer discography is here. Let's say it's down here, right? The entire DeathDealer discography being here. This new album, it's up here. So if you are someone that likes this band's material, you are going to absolutely love this record. If you are somebody who may have heard their previous albums and you weren't really that into them, you might actually like this new album. That is how good I think it is. And to be honest with you, it would have been album of the year the last 2 years. Would have been pretty close on last year, but the year before, it probably would have won. That is how much I like this record. And folks, there will be a more in-depth review coming up. I'm just going to tell you that I am not sick of listening to it. I like listening to it as much now as I did 3 years ago. And that's how much I really like this record. So Blast of the Highway, if you listen to the song, really awesome traditional heavy metal. No frills, no BS. I would probably say it's one of the better songs on the album. There are a few that I love a lot, especially the first track, Assemble. But I've been tight-lipped about it, and now I'm going to tell you that I've heard this record more times than I can count. So it comes out of Massacre Records. It comes out in January. I'm excited for it. I think it's an incredible album. When we get closer to release date, I will go into more in depth on the review of the album. Probably have these guys on my show at some point. But folks, this is a record to really keep your eyes on. Phenomenal album cover. And I've wanted to talk about this album cover for quite some time. Actually, this album cover is absolutely sick. But I really love the new DeathDealer song, and I love the record. I'm sure promos and reviews will start. Promos will probably go out in the next month or so, and reviews will start up for it. But folks, this record is the real deal. Okay, well, we're going to go into the break here on the Metal Command podcast. I will be back after this. Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Since 1998, I have hosted this show, which started off as a radio show and, of course, is now in the world of podcasting. That's right. I've hosted the show since 1998, and I've had the privilege of speaking to so many great bands and artists over the years, and I appreciate the following and support I am receiving from all of you. The show has definitely grown a lot over the last year, and I would love your support. If you have not yet done it, please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and follow the show on any other form of social media. Now, back to the second half of this episode. Back here on the Metal Command podcast here, Tony here with you here after the break. So I'm going to review, and let me talk about the next subject here. Bangalore Choir. Brand new album called Rapid Fire Succession On Target Part 2, which is now out on Brave Words Records. On Target Part 2, of course, referring to the debut album On Target, which came out back in 1992. This is the 5th Bangalore Choir album. Center Mass was the previous record, which was actually very, very good. And this, of course, features vocalist David Reese. David Reese, of course, many of you, if you're not familiar with him, he did sing on an Accept album called Eat the Heat, an album that was kind of a departure from their normal sound. and wasn't the most well received by people. I actually think the album is pretty good. That's just me. However, Bangalore Choir is the band that I think showcases David's talents the best out of any project he has ever been in. Now, granted, he had a solo album that was in my top albums of the year list at one point here. I don't know if it was a year or two, or it might have been a couple years ago now. And that album was pretty good. However, I think David's voice and his talents are best showcased with Bangalore Choir. So the On Target album by Bangalore Choir came out in 1992. That album, in my opinion, would have been much bigger, and this band would have been much bigger if the grunge movement hadn't come in, where metal pretty much died overnight in the United States. I really honestly believe that the debut album by Bangalore Choir, which in my opinion is one of the most overlooked albums and forgotten albums of the early 90s, I think the band would have been much bigger if the grunge movement hadn't come in, or if it had come out a couple years earlier. And there isn't one Bangalore Choir album actually that is bad. They're all very, very good. Not long ago, they released a box set with the first 3 albums in it. Yeah, it was the first 3 albums in it. And then, of course, you had the album Center Mass, which I think is an excellent record. But this new one is really, really, really good. To describe their music, it's a mix of hard rock, traditional heavy metal, and a little bit of ARR mixed in. Lots of great melodies, lots of great hooks. This album actually has 16 songs. They're not ridiculously long. And even though there are a lot of tracks, because David and I talked about this, he was on the show recently, by the way. We talked about this album. And, you know, he was talking about one of the complaints from a reviewer is that there were too many songs. In my opinion, if the songs are good enough, you can never have too many. And I don't think there's a bad track on this album. In fact, right now, if I were thinking about my albums of the year list, this record would definitely be top 5 for me. That is how good it is. And I love David's voice. I really think David Reese and his voice, and you know, and let's be honest, this guy's in his 60s and he still sounds incredible. And he showcases that talent on this album. This album has a collection of songs that are so good, you forget how many songs are on it. They are that good. Lots of great melodies, lots of great hooks. The performances of everybody on the record are incredible. And I don't have a bad thing to say about it. It's pretty much a perfect record to me. I think this album is flawless. And there are quite a few songs that I really do like on the record. So I'm going to go to the interview I just did with David Reese. We kind of go in depth on the album's concept and, of course, the songs on the album. Check out this clip. So you spoke about, the songs kind of having sort of an underlying meaning, with each other in a concept. What kind of concept did you have, as far as what you wrote about on this record?
Yeah. Well, the first track, How Does It Feel, is kind of similar to Angel in Black, the groove. And I knew Angel in Black was such a great song live that everybody knows it. The great Steve Plunkett wrote that. And I that's basically, to me, about, you stuck it in my back. Now I'm watching you have it done to you. How does it feel when the tables are turned? How does it feel, And then driver's seat is basically, sometimes I just got to get away from this desk and get in my car and take off and, take a breath of fresh air. Bullet Train, I've never been to Japan, so I always wanted to ride the bullet train because of the stories I hear. But I kind of turned it into a bullet train to nowhere, the spin cycle of our world we live in.
Yeah.
Then you've got songs like Swimming with the Shark, which is kind of tongue-in-cheek, which was originally I recorded as a punk song.
Yeah.
with a guy named Marco Pittori out of Switzerland. I did it during the COVID lockdown as a need to put sustenance in the house. And I really wasn't a fan of the song, but Giles, bringing him up again, he loved it and said, Dave, if you put a Bangalore Choir bluesy hard rock voice to that and sharpen it up, that could mean something. So that one's basically about meeting a psycho woman from Greece in San Francisco and kind of like tells the story. It's kind of funny. I wanted to put a Steve Stevens kind of guitar thing in it, and Andy wasn't getting it. So Diego Pires, who plays guitar with me on my touring band, he kind of fixed that, and we made it different. So it was ironically that song originally was on radio all the time in Switzerland, and then we did this version, and countries like Germany and places like that are just loving it. So I was kind of not into it when it came out on the record, but now I get it. And then at the end of the record of Act One, there's the light, and that's kind of the story of my life. The kid in the bedroom with the curtain rod, looking in the mirror, pretending I'm so-and-so, dreaming about the business, then getting there, you know, one line is, I see 1,000 faces I pretend to know. The key no longer unlocks the open door. And then at the end of the song, it basically said, you know, after in the chorus of the light has died on the stage tonight, no longer I pretend. And then at the end it says, one horse town, I'm no legend, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, I was meant to be, I went back home. And that's what my career has been like. I've hit super highs and terrible lows. And yeah, that's kind of the theme of what I'm all about. I'm not a baby, whoa lyricist.
No.
I loathe that kind of candy pop stuff. I think a lyric has to have something. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. It's a story, but a lot of people identify with. It's funny. Every interview I do, some people say this really, I love this, and this one I really love, and then the next interview will be this one or I love that one. Yeah. So there's something for everybody.
Yeah, I think the whole baby thing, there are very few people that, for me, really pulled that off well. Like David Coverdale, I thought pulled that off well. But again, Whitesnake started off as a blues band, kind of went into a hard rock thing, but that was like his whole career were those types of songs. And then he kind of went back to the more bluesy stuff, you know, like in, you know, the early 2000s and up until now. Sadly, he just announced his retirement, but I thought he did a great job at that. But with him, it was more real because that's what he always sang about. I mean, it's, you know, from the late 70s on, you know, but most of these guys.
Every song had love in it. Love Ain't No Stranger, Is This Love? I mean, the same title. You knew what you're getting into with Cub. I mean, and hats off to, you know, Sykes. I mean, he wrote Slide It In and the 87 record and demoed it all. I mean, he's a fabulous singer as well, but
sadly he passed away. Yeah, and sadly he passed away too. I mean,
we've lost Ace, we've lost Nick Ralph, it's just every day I wake up, I'm like, I don't even want to see who's gone. I mean,
I got you, man. Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know, for me, so when I listen to this track, I'm looking at this album right now. Songs that I related to, and I'll kind of throw these out there for you. Mending Fences, the last track in the album, was definitely one that really lyrically probably hit home with me more than the rest of the album. That's no disrespect to that, but I just like the lyrical concept of that. At least the way that I heard it. You know, obviously Driver's Seat is a great track. The single I thought Bullet Train was probably, you know, I can honestly tell you most of these labels and most of these bands, a lot of them picked the wrong singles off the album, but I think you guys really hit the nail on the head with that, with Bullet Train being the single. I mean, it was like the perfect single.
Idea.
Yeah. Perfect song to put out as a single.
Yeah, and 97 Underground got that track. It went in at like number 10.
Yeah.
I mean, next week it was 5, and then the following week it was number 1. 6 weeks.
Right.
I mean, I was like, what? It worked. And then they said, where are we going to follow it up with? And I said, Driver's Seat.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Good choice.
Very few times do bands get it right these days with the singles, but both of those singles were perfect because, like, when you listen to those two songs, they are so different from each other, yet they really give you a good idea of what this record is going to sound like. And that's when you're putting singles out, you have to take that into account. You got to get the first one to give the first impression, to draw people in, and then the second and the third and fourth, depending on if you do a third or a fourth, you want to give people another aspect of the record so they get an idea. Hey, this record's going to sound like this. I want to get this, and I think you did a great job. Hats off to you on that. Seriously,
thank you.
Because Bullet Train, it's like I heard you hear some of these bands put out these tracks, and then I get the album, and it's like, man, I wasn't optimistic about this album, but now this is I'll get the album, and it'd be like the single's the worst track in the album, but I didn't have that. You didn't have that with this.
Well, thank you. And again, credit goes to the guys that I wrote it with Andy. I mean, phenomenal talent, great guitarist, and he understands the Dave voice that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Where I shine, I guess is for lack of a better word, where he's listening to what I'm saying on the phone and what I'm talking about, and he goes, give me a couple hours and he'll send me back this ridiculous idea, and I'll be like, that's it. And then Bullet Train pops into my head, and then that just rolls off your tongue, and then boom, you're off to the races. And yeah, I mean, tell me about some of your other favorites. I'm curious. I'd like to hear this.
So Mending Fences, definitely. Bullet Train, definitely. Driver's Seat was definitely. How Does It Feel? Lyrically, I definitely related to that, because it's funny, when I was listening to that, I thought to myself, what I was thinking to myself is, when you know somebody in life is a scumbag and you tell people about it and then they don't listen to you, and then you watch them get screwed over by that person, and you're like, man, I tried telling them, that's kind of how I took that song when I heard it. But Sail On, I thought was a great track.
I wrote that with Marcel Singer. I did actually, if I can interrupt you. I did a thing called Rock Party of the Year last January 31st and February 1st. And as a matter of fact, Les Vinks from Priest was on that show playing drums. And, I was a fan from years ago, and it was kind of cool to meet him. But the guitar player, there was like 5 singers and a bunch of guys from Golden Earring, which are from Holland. That's where it was. And all these like really famous people. And I was invited to sing. It was a 2-night thing, sold out. It was incredible. And the guitar player, Marcel Singer, I watched him each night. There's about 60 songs with Joe, and his fingers were flat, like somebody smashed him with a hammer, and bleeding. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "I'm in my place, dude. I love this." But I said, I'd like to talk to you about writing some music. And he said, "Yeah, let me think." And he goes, "I got this track. What do you think about it?" I go, "That's pretty cool." And I just spun the lyric out, and I went to Mario Percadani's studio, who I wrote some songs with on this record, and played it for him. He goes, "That's a damn good song, Dave." And I said, "Yeah, let's make it better." And with his help and guidance, we brought what you've got.
Yeah.
Now, Mending Fences, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's one of my wife's favorites, and many other people say it. And that came about with my friendship with Freddie Durnberg from Axel Rudy Pell. He and I had played together a few times, and we'd always be in the dressing room with a little Casio, and he'd play Ray Charles riffs and stuff like that. And I just started jamming with him, and he said to me one day, he goes, "There's 2 singers that know what's going on with gospel rock guitar or piano." And I said, "Who?" And he goes, "You and Jolyn Turner. I can sit in a room and just free fall." And I went, "I'm going to call Ferdy. Tell him I'm looking for an Elton John gospel kind of piano thing. What do you got?" He goes, "I got 2 ideas for you, Reese." And he sent me 2, and I picked this one. And Mending Fences, being a redneck cowboy that spent a lot of time on the field with horses and cattle, that's something you do. You burn somebody and you want to fix it, mend the fence. You just go and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry." You make amends. And it touched a lot of people. I think it's a great ending to that 16-song record.
Yeah. Yeah. Ferdy's, see, the band that I remember him from was a band called Rough Silk. If you remember them, I remember him from there. He's
Yep.
played with tons of people. Like he did some very unknown stuff with very unknown album with Halloween's bass player Marcus Grauskopf many years ago. He was doing, he had the band Rough Silk was where I actually remember him from. But then you have a lot of the stuff that he's done with so many. I mean, he's done guests with so many people.
Bobby Krieger from The Doors.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows the Manzura keyboard sound. I mean, he's a Doors fanatic, and he's got a collection of CDs. That guy. I don't know if you know this. It's like a museum in his basement. And we had bad flooding in Germany a couple of years ago, and guitars were floating. But he saved a lot of it. But the guy literally will play on your record and go buy it. I don't know how many thousand CDs that guy's got in guitars. And he plays trumpet, guitar, bass, keys, drums. He plays everything. He's played with, the list is endless what he's played on. He's a sweetheart of a man, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Phenomenal, a phenomenal player. I mean, he's played with lots of different groups over the years. And, Axel Weird Appel is one people know him from. But it's not even just that. It's he's like the king of the European keyboard player, like king of guest appearances, because he's probably played on 200 albums, if I'm going to guess.
At least,
yeah, if not more than that. So yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard that name in a long time, actually, but I
love him to death.
I do remember the Rough Silk albums, back in the 90s when I started the show.
He's got a band called Berg Hart right now that he's playing with, the duet that he does off nights with. It's a kind of acoustic weird thing. He's also got a punk band. They all dress in like pajamas, like onesies. it's crazy German language. I mean, hardcore punk. I mean, he's all over the place musically. Yeah. So I love him.
Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really, really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal. And that is myself and David Reese going in depth when it comes to the songs on this record. And, a lot of times I could sit there and explain all this. So it's usually when I play some of these interview clips, it gives you a little bit more clarification of what I think. And of course, you hear David's side of things when it comes to some of the tracks on this album. But here's how I look at this record. In my opinion, I think this record is flawless. It really is flawless. It is an amazing collection of 16 really well put together songs that flow well together, that have catchy hooks, that have catchy melodies. And when I listen to this, these 16 songs, it doesn't seem like it's as long of an album as it is. Because when the songs are that good, the album goes by pretty quickly, actually. So, really, really digging it. This album is flawless and an album of the year contender. So let's move on to the last part of this show. I want to talk briefly about Megadeth's brand new single called I Don't Care. And folks, I got to be honest with you. I like this song better than the first single because I can relate to the lyrics. The lyrics really describe me to a T. Like the first two lines in the song. I don't care if I'm out of line. I don't care because this life is mine. That is a perfect description of me in a sense. So Megadeth, of course, recording what they say is their last album. I really honestly believe it will be the last record. I believe Dave Mustaine. I think they're going to tour for quite a long time. But I think this is the last album. And I think this is probably the last tour. It could, which, could last a year, could last 5 years. Who knows? But so far, we have 2 really great songs off of this upcoming Megadeth album. And I think the songs are so good to the point that if they're going to go out, they're going to really go out on a high note. So what do I like? So I put this song up on the Facebook page and on social media. I wanted to gauge the opinion of a lot of people. The 2 most predominant types of comments I had were that 1, people love all the guitar solos. And 2, a lot of people were basically saying the lyrics are kind of childish and that they were bad and that they were dumb. I saw a lot of comments on that. First of all, the lyrics that everybody calls childish, I absolutely love the lyrics because it describes pretty much how I feel these days. And so I read you those 2 lines, the first 2 lines of this song. And when I heard this and I heard those 2 lines, I immediately just knew I was going to like the lyrics of this track. I don't care if I'm out of line. I don't care because my life is mine. I mean, that really personifies me. Because I don't really shy away from my opinion. I speak my mind. People might call that out of line. But again, I am me. That's why I don't care. So the song itself is great. Now, one of the coolest comments, and a comment that I immediately thought of, this is something that came to my mind when I started hearing the guitar solos of the song. If you know the band Beholder, I had Carlos Alvarez on and John Yellen, 2 guys. It's a brand new band, kind of a mix between power metal and doom metal. Carlos Alvarez is he's a huge metal fan. And one of the comments he made on this single was that Teemu Manasari is channeling his inner Marty Friedman. And I could not describe Teemu's guitar playing any better than what Carlos did. Because that's exactly what I heard. I think, gotta be honest with you, man, Kiko and Dave were great together on guitar. I think Teemu Manasari and Dave Mustaine are also, the chemistry together is incredible. And I really think this song is really well written. It's been a long time, too, since we had a Megadeth song that had lyrics like this. Where it's just like, yeah, who cares? Let's just write this. This is how I feel. And it just, I don't know. I'm trying to remember of a Megadeth song that has the same kind of feel as this one does. And I can't think of a recent one that does. But I just like the no holds barred approach to the lyrics. And it's a big reason why I like this song. Now, Tipping Point's good. Don't get me wrong. It's a great track. But I don't care. In my opinion, is better. And I think mainly because on a personal level, I can relate to it. I'm listening to the lyrics of this and I'm like, man, this man, he's probably not reading my mind, but we are on the same wavelength when it comes to the lyrics of this song. So I'm excited for the next Megadeth album. I just wanted to make a brief comment about the single, which I think is very, very good. And I'm bummed out by the fact that this is probably their last album. But at the same time, I think this next record is probably going to be very good, and I'm excited to hear it. Again, Megadeth, they were one of the first metal bands that really made me love this music. And yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of getting into their albums and listening to their music, getting to interview Dave Mustaine in my radio show back in the day. Just a really, and he was a really cool dude to me. I know some people, there's people out there, there's detractors, but Dave was really cool to me. The one time I met him and when he came on my radio show. With that said, that's all I have for you today here on the Metal Command podcast. Thanks for watching. Stay metal. Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really, really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal.